Welcome along to a very special edition of Ask GCN Anything, which is where you normally get to ask us, the presenters, anything you want which is cycling related. However, being at the Vuelta, we have roped in two people who know what they're talking about. To my left is Ben King, who, being 27 years of age, is now in his 6th year as a World Tour rider. He won the National US Champs back in 2009. And to my right is Joe Dombrowski, who is 25, 4th year in the World Tour. Won the Tour of Utah last year and was animating the mountainous stages of the Giro d'Italia back in May. Right, we should get straight on with the questions. The first comes in from Spearfish 1970, who asks, the concept of training on fixed gear bikes has been around for at least 100 years. What is the modern take on fixed gear training? Can you fit it in somewhere throughout the year, Joe?
To be honest, I've ridden a fixed gear bike maybe 5 minutes in my entire life, and I'm not very good at it. But during the winter, I, especially last winter, did a lot of mixed cadence type of intervals, a lot of like high torque, low cadence stuff on the climbs, and also a lot of these blocks of like 20, 30 minutes at 120 RPMs. So in a way, kind of like riding fixed gear, I guess, yeah.
Like riding fixed gear but with gears. Ben, have you ever done fixed gear stuff through the season or in the winter?
Yeah, I have to agree with Joe there. The only time I've ridden a fixed gear is on the velodrome. So I think, yeah, my experience with fixed gears bikes is limited to the velodrome and hipsters. But like Joe, I do a lot of mixed cadence stuff, low cadence on climbs, high cadence variations, because that's what you get in the races. So it can be valuable. I know a lot of guys that do train on the road with fixed gear bikes, and you know, they swear by it. Whatever makes it easier. It's nice to mix things up in the winter.
The next question comes in from Neil Moss, who wants to know what sunscreen pros use, because he finds that the regular high SPF stuff is either too sticky or runs off when the going gets sweaty.
The team provides us with different options for sunscreen. I find that the white goopy stuff a lot of dirt tends to stick to it, and the clear spray-on stuff works better for me. It doesn't sting the eyes as much and tends to stay on.
Joe?
I actually bring my own to the race usually, and my mom got some in the US that are dermatologist recommended that is, I think it's only zinc oxide in it, so it's supposed to be less toxic. So I use that.
Okay, well actually this was something that we did ask a number of pros at the Vuelta a couple of years ago, this very same question. So if you want to watch that now, they'll tell you what factor they use. What factor of sun cream do you use?
Whatever's in the bus, really. I try to use a 30. Going to 50, sometimes it gets a bit too thick, and you sweat a bit too much then. So try and stick to a 30.
When it's really hot like now, what factor sun cream do you put on?
Luckily, I am a guy who can really stand the heat. I'm really happy with that, especially in the Vuelta. But in the beginning, it's 30 or 50, but now it's okay with 20, factor 20.
Right, on to the next question, which came in from Edward Chandler. How do I get my hands on a GCN bottle? Which actually means that I can mention that you can get your hands on a red one now on shop.globalcyclingnetwork.com. These clear ones are still limited edition, but we have the opportunity for you to win one of those. And the Camelback bottle also from Team Cannondale in the Argyle there as well. And a team cap. Now, in order to win all three of these, all you've got to do is correctly guess the combined weight of Joe and Ben. Now, I haven't even told them that I'm going to do this yet, so they haven't told me their weight, but I'm going to try and persuade them afterwards, and whoever gets closest will win that. Next up, from Edward Smith, any ideas on incorporating cycling training with training for other sports, such as football?
Yeah, actually, I've gotten to meet a lot of really interesting athletes who use cycling as cross training. So a lot of motorsports athletes that I'll actually train with in the season because they're pretty fit. Motorsports athletes, track and field. It's low impact and it's really good for your aerobic system. So yeah, a lot of other athletes use cycling.
And Joe, do you do any other sports in the off season?
Yeah, I like to. Well, I don't know how different it is, but I like to get out on the mountain bike. You
started off as a mountain biker, did you?
I started off as a mountain biker. Yeah, I also like to get out and ski. I mean, I'm maybe not supposed to say that, but I do like to get out and ski.
Yeah. It might be against his contract. He might be out of a job next year. You didn't ask the question. Well, I thought that was a good take on it, actually. The fact that you can do cycling. And quite a few riders, like Simon Gerrans, have come from another sport, for example, and become a professional as a cyclist.
Yeah, I misunderstood that. But yeah, I think in the off season is a chance for us to do things that we couldn't do otherwise, like play a pickup football game in the backyard. Then when training gets more serious, then you start to incorporate training with more crossover to cycling. A lot of cross country skiers, running a little bit, anything that challenges the aerobic system, and high power stuff, weightlifting and swimming.
Well, once again, this was actually a question we posed to a number of riders at last year's Tour of Britain. You can watch that video now, and there's a particularly interesting answer from Taylor Finney.
I've been known to do some dancing.
I like skiing.
Running, swimming, a bit of mountain biking. No, I don't do a lot in the off season.
Fabian Wegman, what cross training do you do over the winter months, other sports?
Of sports, yeah, I like skiing. I like skiing a lot. I did a lot of cross-country skiing in the winter. It's good for the back, it's good for the whole core stability, so yeah, it's a nice sport.
What other sports do you do in the winter months, cross training in the winter?
I use my mountain bike for a lot, for a big time period. And last year I tried running, but with the knees, that wasn't a good idea. So.
What was the furthest you ran?
5 kilometers.
Okay, next up, Ernest Tan says, would you recommend a home trainer or rollers for indoor training?
I prefer the home trainer because when I'm training inside, sometimes I'll do long rides and I like to kind of switch off mentally and watch a movie and not pay attention too much. I've only ridden the rollers a few times, so I don't really trust myself on those yet. But Kinetic makes a trainer that's called the Rock and Roll that moves back and forth and gives you a little bit more of a fluid road feel, and I think that's been good for core stability and gives you a bit of a more realistic feel.
Joe, what's the longest you've ever spent on an indoor trainer without stopping?
It's funny you ask because I'm terrible about riding inside. An hour and a half at training camp, only because there was other riders around, so I had to keep going.
Poor. Right, Johnny Cab asked, what kind of watts are the guys on the front doing on flat stages of Grand Tours, i.e. in the early parts of the race, the last 25Ks and the last 2Ks?
It's pretty varied, but usually on flat days in the Grand Tours, it's fairly under control once the breakaway goes. So the guys normally on the sprinters teams, or if there's someone dangerous for GC in the break that are pulling on the front, it's not crazy. I mean, 350? Something like that.
Not crazy.
Not crazy.
Right. I don't even know how to pronounce his name. Persay Donabe. I get stung by a bee about once a month during summer. Is this something a pro rider ever has to deal with in a race? I think it was specific to that question.
Yeah, sometimes you'll see a rider take his helmet off real quick and shake it, and it looks like, you see someone walking through a field and they start freaking out like they just hit a spider web or something. It can be like that, and yeah. Bees will hit you. If they go under your glasses, you're in big trouble.
Have you actually been stung before?
Not during a race. In training, I've had them sting me under my glasses and get in my helmet and sting me and down my jersey and sting me. So yeah, just...
Next up, Jore van der Weyer. Penultimate question. Every rider knows the feeling of waking up with sore legs. I ask myself a lot, should I go for a short, easy spin or just rest completely?
I would say it depends on what you're doing the next day. Like, for example, yesterday I was in the breakaway, and I also woke up with very sore legs this morning. But I think you're best off, considering that I have to race again tomorrow, going out for a little spin. But if there's nothing of importance the next day, then maybe just totally off is good too.
Yeah, if you're planning 2 rest days in a row, the first of those maybe take completely off. Do you ever have complete days off in the season when you're training at home?
Yeah, absolutely. I take days off probably once a week.
Okay, there's your answer to that one. Finally, Monco Billo says, in pro races, do the cars and motorbikes have any extra filters on their exhaust, or do the riders just have to breathe the fumes in?
Not that I know of. The only modification I know of to team cars is some of them are lowered for the UCI height limits that we can see over them.
Okay. How long do you think it will be, Ben, before we see electric vehicles in races?
It's a good question. It depends on battery life. Joe's got a pretty long battery life. So if the car can keep up with Joe, then maybe, pretty soon.
Great. Well, all that leaves me to say is thank you very much to both of the guys for taking some time out of their rest day to answer your questions. To give you a clue about how much their combined weight is, it's not very much, but it is in triple figures. Right, we've got some videos to throw to right now. So if you would like to see all of those start line questionnaires that we talked about, you can find that on the bottom right side just here. On the other hand, we've got an entire Vuelta a España playlist, which you can find on the other side here. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, just click on the globe.